It is 4 p.m. We're bringing developing news.
And the stories behind the headlines. This is Storycon. I'm Regina Late.
I'm Ed Lingao. Some stores are watching this Thursday, March 19. The Philippine peso breached the 60 to the dollar mark on early Thursday trading, hitting a new record low of 60.4. This surpasses the previous record low of 59.87 set on March 16, as well as that day's intraday low of 59.95. The local currency closed yesterday at 59.52. The BSP says it is monitoring the impact of the ongoing Middle East conflict on inflation, the economy, and financial markets. It is also assessing how higher oil prices could affect transport, fares, fertilizer costs, and overall prices ahead of its April 23 policy meeting. The BSP says it will intervene in the foreign exchange market only to prevent big swings in the peso that could affect inflation.
The latest Pulse Asia survey found that Filipinos want the national government to prioritize lower food prices, job creation, and the reduction of corruption amid rising fuel costs. The poll, which was commissioned by Strat-based Institute, showed 41% of respondents identified more affordable food as their top concern. This figure rose by 3 percentage points from a similar survey done in December of 2025, so about 3 months ago. About 26% of respondents cited the need to lessen or eliminate corruption, while 24% said the government should focus on creating more jobs. The survey was conducted from February 27 to March 2 among 1,200 respondents with a plus-minus 2.8% margin of error.
Speaker Bojidi blasts the Department of Budget and Management over alleged delays in the release of funds for infrastructure projects. He warns that budgets are useless if funds do not reach the public on time. He urged the agency to act faster in implementing programs. For its part, the DBM denies the allegations, saying that fund releases depend on requests from implementing agencies and must follow existing rules.
In a widespread transport strike led by the group Piston has begun amid a series of big-time oil price hikes. Piston said the strike will continue as they call on the government to address rising fuel prices. They're also calling for the repeal of the oil deregulation law and the scrapping of taxes on fuel, excise taxes on fuel, I should say. Meantime, several local governments, including Quezon City and Manila, rolled out Libreng Sakay programs for the affected commuters. That was today.
And joining us today, mainit-init pa ang kanyang silya dahil kalalaning lamang niya. Oh, natrapi ka ba?
At maayos ang silya.
Oo. Kailangan palala eh.
What are you insinuating?
Walang nagsabotahe. I must be doing something right.
Can we correct that record? Strike that from the record.
You're
Walang
amending the
nagsabotahe.
record.
I'm amending the records. Walang nagsabotahe sa kanya in the first place.
Parang suntay
Hindi yun. Iba yun eh.
Did you just compare
Ay, si
me?
Kwan pala. Si
Marcoleta yun.
Congressman Premonition pala yan. Na-strike
Hindi.
out.
Si Marcoleta anyway, sige.
Okay.
Na-strike out, diba? Yung
And
Congressman Premonition.
let's bring in from the Philippine Star Editor-in-Chief, Ami Pamintuan.
Hindi natin napaklalay ko at katabi natin.
Hi, everybody. Not so happy pa rin ang Thursday.
Okay,
Very dark ka ngayon.
in keeping...
Pakilala mo natin katabi natin. Nag-intro tayo na hindi umabot sa intro.
Yes,
No need for intro. Ikaw naman kasi yun.
Our resident
That was
political
you.
heckler, Raul Llamas.
Okay, Ami, in keeping with this week's theme, ano yung positive thing mo today?
Dark nga yung kanya
21 billion. roll out ng Malacanang. In-announce ng Malacanang. 21 billion para pump, I guess it's pump priming kasi yung 18 billion para sa deep public works and I think 2.4 or 2.5 billion para sa sa Department of Transportation para sa tulong sa transport sector na nagdurusa ngayon.
Well, that is good
Ayan
news.
positive.
But at
Thank
least
you.
yung tulong sa transport sector, sigurado tayo doon na may pupuntahan. Pero yung sa DPWH,
Sa DPWH, hindi malino. Si Vince Dizon naman yan siguro.
we're
titignan
hoping,
natin,
yeah,
parang
we're hoping.
just to get job generation yan kung baka ituloy na yung mga nauntala na mga project na matagal nang on hold, baka nakapag due diligence na sila dun sa kung ano yung pwedeng ituloy, kung ano yung pwede pang kailangan imbestigahan.
Well,
Kasi
isa
pati
rin,
yung mga negosyante, di ba, Reg, even the business community is complaining na
Yep.
ang laki na nga daw ng slowdown.
Matagal na. It's
Construction yan eh.
ever since the scandal broke, things
Yeah.
have been frozen apparently at the DPWH. Kahit nung
Yes.
pinasok ni Vince Dizon yung ibang mga tao, of course they're a bit scared over in the aftermath of what happened, this largest corruption
Yeah.
scandal ever in the history of the Philippines. So matagal
Walang
before they
gustong
sign
pumirma.
off on projects. So,
Walang gustong pumirma for anything, for fund releases,
And
for
because-
project
Oh, and-
approval, wala.
And because as well, don't forget the BSP implemented new risk mechanisms, diba? In terms of the flow of money. From
Yes.
off the back of this scandal nga na saka lang natin na-realize na wait a minute, nobody should be able to withdraw 387 million pesos over the counter
Yeah.
in one go.
pero pwede rin kasing i-realign Halimbawa, 20% ng mga hard infrastructure projects papunta dito sa emergency.
Okay, now we have the final figure for the peso today. Of course, the big talk of town is the peso breach 60 to the dollar today, and the
60.
close is 60.1.
Wow,
Just
60 talaga
in
siya.
60 pesos 10 cents per dollar. This is the record.
Yeah.
This is the lowest record, lowest level in
Ever.
ever
Ever.
in the history of the Philippines. Lowest, weakest value ever for the local currency. As Ed said earlier, umabot na 60.4 earlier in the day, but here we have it now. It's closed at 60.10.
Malaking bagay yun, zero. Dapat yung 2:1 yung dollar eh.
Take us back to those times.
Pero,
Malaking bagay yun.
pero minsan confusing yan. Akala nila pag mababa yung currency mo, mahina yung iyong economy. Pero ang baba ng Japan, Japanese yen, di ba?
Okay.
Yung,
So yan din yung point ni former NEDA Secretary Winnie Monsod. Remember, Ami, when we had that interview
Yeah,
with her,
yeah.
she was saying, so what kung mahina yung currency? There are other countries that actively work to depress their currency.
Yes.
Pinupush
Yeah.
down nila. The difference is we're not an exporting country.
Yes.
Japan is a
Yes.
huge exporter, so it
Yes.
benefits them pag mahina yung currency. But we don't export that much. We're not an
Yes.
exporting country. So
Yun yung ibang variables na dapat
oo, it hurts us kasi importer tayo.
So, ginagamit natin yung dollar para bumili.
Exactly. So
Saka
itong
ang Japan, malakas ang tourism. Kasi pag bagsak yung
yes.
currency mo, mas maraming
tama.
turista.
Oo.
Kaya lang tayo naman, ang dami-dami pang mga variable sa tourism industry natin na dapat ayusin, di ba?
Correct.
At
And
kung,
now
Kaya-
at kung mataas yung debt to GDP mo, binabayaran mo yung loans mo in dollars.
exactly. Mataas nga. We are
Yeah.
the country's debt is now at least the ones attributed to overseas financing is going up. Nakalimutan ko na yung
And
latest number.
we are dependent
Pag malaki, nung
on
panahon namin, 40 lang.
imports for almost all our basic
40 yung
needs.
peso.
Yes.
Yung
Bigas,
debt.
asin,
Pati
pati
fertilizer.
gatas, fertilizer, lahat eh.
Yes.
Gasolina, in fact.
Exactly.
Una na gasolina.
Wala pa kayong positibo na pwedeng sabihin?
Yun nga sinabi niya, Ami.
Sinabi ko na kanina,
Sinabi niya,
21
Ami.
billion.
Pinipiga
Ano ba
na nga nila, hindi mo
Hindi
pa
ako.
napapansin.
I cover the economy, right? So don't ask me.
Hindi, may isang positibo
but, Okay.
May isang positibo na hindi pa lumalabas sa balita.
Oh.
Ano?
Mukhang yung sinasabi natin kahapon na exploring, hindi na exploring. No,
We
pero-
bought the 2 million
Sinabi na
barrels.
talks
Mukhang
na,
meron na tayong
talks
nakuha.
na.
Oo, pero hintayin natin sila magsabi.
The bad side
Akin
to,
kasi chismis lang eh.
teka lang, the negative side of that is bumaba na yung peso, which means now we have to pay more for that
Yes.
2 million barrels
Oo
of
nga.
oil.
Yes.
Pero
Pero delikado kasi kung 20 days lang yung reserve, kailangan
Yeah.
talaga dagdagan mo ng dagdagan.
tsaka yung 2 million is how many days?
4, 5 days.
4. Kasi yun nga, mga 480,000 barrels a day tayo eh. Oo, yun nga. Not even 5 days.
Nadagdagan ka na nga ng 4-5 araw.
reklamo pa, no?
Ayaw, galit ka pa.
Medyo nabawas na,
Ano
I
ba
think, ang
gusto mo?
demand ngayon kasi ang daming hindi gumagamit ngayon ng sasakyan nila eh.
Pero si Ami,
Including the PUV,
Talaga maluwag
unfortunately.
ngayon, ha?
Pero si Ami made a good point about tourism because that's another pillar of the economy of Japan,
Yeah.
right? Whereas for us, there are some studies showing that we've become the laggard in ASEAN. Na-overtake na
And,
tayo.
yeah.
in some ways by Cambodia, places like Cambodia in terms of tourists. So
Imagine Vietnam. Dati ang flight ng Delhi to Vietnam is just once a week. Ngayon, it's more than 50. Ibig sabihin, nag-boom yung tourism nila, specifically sa isang bansa.
Yeah.
Paano pa sa iba?
sa China din. Flights between Vietnam and China jumped.
Yes.
Teka lang. Who is our Secretary of Tourism at this point? Anong balita mo?
Acting pa lang, acting.
May acting ka eh.
I know, but who is going to be
Acting.
put there? There's, with 2 years to go. Who did you hear?
Pero sigurado tayong may posisyon na si Frasco, di ba?
Taking na siya. Christina
Naswearing na eh.
Frasco.
Swear in.
Sustainable,
Taking na.
Sustainable.
At na-recycle
And
siya,
resilient
si
cities.
Tony Loizaga
Yung
yung
ating revamp,
Recycle.
relocation.
Sorry, ano yan, Ami?
Binigyan siya ng si Tony Loizaga.
Yes.
Then nag-taking na si Christina Frasco
yeah.
for
Yes.
sustainability ba siya?
Sustainable and
Advisor on
resilient cities.
sustainability.
Oh, whatever that
Pero
means.
meron tayo ngayon si Tony Loizaga, the former DNR Special Envoy for
disaster.
Disaster Resilience.
Disaster and risk management. Wait. So those
Ayan.
two new positions, where do they sit?
Ewan. Baka 1 peso a year
Sagutin mo
yata
naman.
yan, advisor
No,
yan.
hindi ko kasi masyado marinig eh.
I
Ayun, may ganun eh.
I don't think they need the money.
Hindi, saan itong
Yeah.
dalawang bagong positions, Special Envoy for Disaster Resilience and Risk Management at saka yung Secretary
Yeah.
for Sustainable Cities, where do they sit in the bureaucracy?
Well, depende kung
One nga eh.
gagawin silang cabinet rank eh. So, ibig sabihin, usually mga post na yan, hindi naman cabinet rank eh. Pero kung gusto ng presidente,
Pwede.
Pwede.
He can
Yeah.
nominate them to be cabinet rank.
yes. No? Kaya parang yung political
Kasi may
advisor,
DENR
before kasi
secretary
hindi
eh.
yan cabinet
Paano
rank
yan?
eh. Nung panahon ni GMA, tsaka nung panahon ni Pinoy, ginawang cabinet rank. Panahon ni ERAP, hindi, USEC rank. Rank. So, depende. Paano kung
But
siyempre
what
kung
is your
cabinet rank,
sense?
mas malapit ka sa kusina.
Oo.
Ibig sabihin, mas pinapakinggan ka kesa yung undersecretary yung position mo. Halimbawa, yung National Anti-Poverty Commission, nung panahon ni Pinoy, cabinet rank yan. Nung panahon ni Digong, hindi. Ngayon, di ko alam kung cabinet rank yan.
No, it's not.
Oh, yeah.
It's not.
So, nagbabago siya.
Oo. Who is the head of
Yeah.
the National Anti-Poverty Commission?
Hindi ko rin alam.
Hindi pa siya gadon.
Si Larry Gadon. No,
Hindi,
he's
hindi.
presidential
Assistant siya,
Advisor.
advisor.
Advisor
siya
on
for
poverty
alleviation.
Iba yung
Alleviation.
National Anti-Poverty Commission.
Oo.
NAPSI.
Oo nga, ewan ko.
Okay, let's delve into our big breaking news this afternoon. First, of course, the peso breaching 60 to the dollar. Let's bring in Jonathan Ravelas, Senior Advisor at Reyes Tacandong and Company. Jonas, here we are. 60. Hindi ko alam
Senior moment na to, Jonas.
Oh,
Senior moment.
Well, senior moment na to.
senior moment na. I know it was expected, but talk us through the implications of this. Kasi 60 is a psychological barrier din, di ba?
Yes.
It changes how the traders and investors look at the country.
Well, let's put it this way. If oil prices already moved beyond 100, 110, and your peso didn't depreciate way beyond that when you are a net importing country of oil, definitely the repercussions are there. No, it's going to be inflationary, and of course, it will create a slowdown. So the question is, really, will this persist? No, itong war will persist. So that, I think, is a question. So that leaves us where the peso will take. No, if the extended war continues beyond 6 weeks, then definitely that means oil could move between 100 to even 150. So that's where we are, and definitely inflationary, and then the risks of an inflation over 4%, then that means the BSP will most likely not cut rates at this point in time.
You're talking about 6 weeks kung mag-last yung gera. Ang problema yung
That's-
ating oil reserves is...
That's the scenario one.
Yes, yung ating oil reserves is less than 3 weeks. So, yun yung problema. What will happen kung maubos yung ating oil reserves? At walang magbenta sa atin because of the
Well,
constriction.
I think the challenge really is that this 50 to 60 day yung inventory natin, you have to remember the old ones of 90 to 180 day were based on crude. These are fixed goods or these are already finished goods. Isa na lang refinery natin. So I think at this point in time, trying to look where to ensure that there is supply, whether we get it in Asia, then I think yun lang yung kailangan natin the government should work on trying to ensure that there is supply. No? This is just a potential disruption that we're trying to address. Not that we'll have a strategic reserves, but I think what we need to know is that there should be other sources. Just like any supply chain, dapat may alternative tayo. And of course, we're not only getting it from the Middle East, we're also getting it from China and other sources. So we just have to work on that supply chain, no?
Pero sir, hindi ba umiiksi nga lalo ang PC natin? Kasi for example, China has already, at least for March, announced that it's stopping all exports of finished products. So doon pa lang.
Conservative ngayon yung
sarado.
mundo eh. They will harness para sa sarili nila yung kanilang mga oil reserves.
I agree, but a higher oil price also has its own failure. If oil prices will remain high, definitely everybody will slow down. Therefore, there will be a natural drop in oil prices. Magno-normalize yan. So I think this is something na katulad nangyari nung Russia-Ukraine war. The war is still here, but how oil prices played. So it's in the initial stages where people become risk off. Sooner or later, masasanay ka dyan.
So
And that's, I think,
Parang
I
iba yung
think that's
Ukraine,
where
no? Wala silang
the
Strait of
impact will
Hormuz,
be, no?
Parang iba yung Ukraine war eh. Paano, it's about Russian oil eh. Ito, yung Strait of Hormuz eh.
Tsaka parang ang masakit sir masanay sa ganyan.
These are the Gulf states eh. Yun ang problema. No?
Saka
I
tinitira na
agree
pati
with
Saudi
you.
Arabia.
Yeah.
Oil facilities, pati oil facilities tinitira ngayon eh.
Yeah.
Yes, but there is also if the other G7 countries will release their strategic reserves. The other thing that people don't talk about is Saudi Arabia, UAE have pipelines towards the Red Sea, although it is only
Yes, sir.
10%.
Yeah.
If it is successful, they could eventually shift. Diba? So these are all things that, of course, we're throwing all of these in the wind. What I think is important is how do we all address this? So the idea of being self-aware as a country or as an individual, that's the thing that we can do. And the first thing that we can do is really austerity measures. Di ba?
It's a good
So
point, sir.
these are things that I think we should be looking at and not panic, di ba?
Yes, sir. Well, it's good you mentioned nga yung pipeline ng Saudi dun sa Red Sea. But on the other hand, sir, that cuts across the entire country and that comes with a lot of other possible potential issues. Not just the volume that we would need, but as well yung possibility of sabotage or it's a long pipeline. It cuts across the entire country.
That's true.
If they want to cut it, they can easily cut it.
Yeah, I guess the point is there are alternatives which they're trying. That's why they have a 10%, just a minimum. So if we're not going to look at other things and we always think of the worst, then definitely nothing's going to happen. I think at this point in time, and this is where government should look into probably revitalizing how we move to biomass and all, try to look at other alternatives that we used to have before. But at this point in time, definitely the first thing people should be doing is try to look at especially for companies, is look at their liquidity, no? Especially for companies. Second, lessen their exposure or hedge their exposure on foreign exchange. And then look at their pricing strategy today. Di ba? Kasi magkakaroon ng margin compression.
But what should
So-
government be doing at this point? No? Because ang sabi ng DOE, there's no oil crisis. Ang sabi ng Malacanang, there's no emergency. So, okay lang naman na wag magpanic. Pero sobrang propaganda
chill.
naman yun. Na
Sobrang chill.
there's no oil crisis, there's no emergency, no? With the limited oil reserves at saka yung pagtaas ng presyo ng lahat, no? Hindi lang oil. So what should the government do and how should they lead our people dito?
Okay. Well, my 2 cents worth, no, I don't, well, one of the important things is we need to do targeted subsidies, no? Meaning we need to be able to help the marginalized, but not at the expense of cutting revenues, meaning if we're going to suspend the excise tax. Kasi kulang na nga tayo ng income na revenue source. Especially you have a slowing economy. So you just have to do targeted. You can, the best that you can. At the same time, look at alternatives where we're going to get the supply of oil. And then at the same time, work with the supply chain, the logistics, no? How can they lessen the use of this tracking system? Kasi yung mga nagdadala ng pagkain or goods, maybe you can eventually try to be able to work together so that there's less people using these facilities. Mag-consolidate kayo para less use. Diba?
Sir,
Total
I wonder,
naman.
yes, sir. So, but
Those are things that we need to do.
yes, sir. But I also wonder how you view yung apparently mixed signals coming from Malacanang as far as, for example, yung excise taxes are concerned. On one hand, sinanti pa nila as urgent. Tapos ngayon, parang, teka, huwag muna nating pirmahan, pag-isipan muna natin. Diba?
We will observe.
I think the key there is it gives them an option, a variety of options of what to do. I think that is something that yung initiative that was done by in Congress was to give the Malacanang something to think about. Diba? What we need to be able to do is to give either the cabinet to provide a set of solutions to the president on what to do. On the other hand, some people created, these are the other tools that you can use in the meantime. So it allows Malacanang to make the decision, are we going to do this or not? So one consequence is, since we were expecting at least 50 basis point cut this year, eventually isa lang yung naging cut, 25, no? So what does that mean? Cutting interest rate will also mean a higher interest rate expense for the national government. So that's another cost. So they have to look at trying to balance revenue and then the targeted spending. So kailangan i-balance niya yan, and at the same time, on the private sector, be able to help in trying to mitigate this transport and logistics kasi 100% ang exposure natin dyan on oil, no?
Pero di ba iba ang flexibility, iba ang confusion. Pinaaprubahan mo yung excise tax, tapos ngayon ay tentative ka. Ba't
Ayaw
mo ba
gamitin.
pinaaprubahan? Ikalawa, sabi ng Malacanang ay walang state of emergency. Tapos ngayon, humihingi ng emergency powers. So, iba ang flexibility, iba ang confusion sa mga tao. Because during a time of crisis, kinakailangan ng clear leadership eh.
Yes, I think you're right. It's the messaging, but again, it's really providing the option. I think the key at the moment is that the 50 to 60 day, shall I say, inventory is good. Whether we have an additional 2 million barrels as, shall I say, a cushion or a buffer is good. The question is, we just want to make sure that there's no disruption. I think yun yung pinakaunang kailangan maging message, na hindi tayo magkaroon ng disruption nung pagpasok ng langis, because that will again create other sources. So I think you're right. The key there is to tell everybody that there will be supply, period, on trying to
Honest,
address
maglalabas daw, mag-a-approve daw Malacanang ng 21 billion for DPWH to get certain infrastructure projects going. So I guess gusto nilang ma-stimulate yung yung construction and job generation. What do you think of that?
Well, eventually, I think in early January, they did the 1.4 trillion announcement under the BBR, yung big bold reforms. However, typically, and it takes at least a quarter to ramp up this spending, moving from DBM to the line agencies. Ito yung tinatawag nating absorptive capacity, no? Although the question is, we've already missed a quarter to do that kasi na-delay yung passage ng budget, January na. So that means it will take time. Kahit sabihin mo gusto mong gumastos, mag-release ka ng 21 billion, it's not as fast.
Tama.
If we're going to feel anything, that will be probably towards the end of the second quarter. And papunta na nga ng rainy season. So, baka malesen pa nga yung papasok na infra spending kasi baka magkaroon ng interruption sa pagdating sa climate, di ba? And this is the challenge.
18 billion pala, 18 billion yung infra spending. You were also talking about targeted assistance. What about yung fare increase? In-announce ng LTFRB the next days. Sinuspindi ni President Marcos. What do you think of that?
I think it should have been more coordinated. I think the key factor is try to lessen the
confusion.
The potential, aside from the confusion, but the potential second round effects. Diba? Kasi pag nagtaas ka na ng fares, then the rest will follow. Oo, diba? So I think yun yung kailangan. I think that there is actually a committee between the DA, the BSP, and the DOF. I think that monitors inflationary. That would have been ideal to convene that and eventually address all of these issues. Kasi parang lahat speculation, hindi pa natin nakikita ano yung potential effect. What we all have are basically a rule of thumb. Like for every 1 peso depreciation, the impact to inflation is 0.04%. So kung foreign exchange ang pinag-uusapan natin, very little yung impact, kahit mag-60 yan, very little yung impact, no? But when it comes to a 10 peso dollar increase in oil, that translates to between 0.5 to 0.6 na added to headline inflation. So medyo malaki yon, no? So, but the more important is the impact on inflation expectations. The confusion, all of the headlines that we're talking about, kung ikaw yung household, that will actually prevent you from spending. Na parang sinasabi natin, when inflation was at 2% in January, people were saying, hey, pwede na tayong gumastos kasi nag-normalize na, galing tayo ng halos 6%. And pwede na. Suddenly now, we're worried about the potential impact of this war, the Middle East crisis, no? So ngayon, yan ngayon yung isa sa pinakamalaki that influences the potential recovery of the economy. Kasi remember, 70% ng economy natin spending. So that's why the self-awareness, especially for our fellow Filipinos, is to realize how to fix your budget. Kung di ka makabili ng butter, mag-margarine ka. So you have to do substitute. So the strategy of working in a budget economy,
But what do you see?
Will create a resilience.
What do you see is the strategy of the government ngayon? Dahil even before this crisis, this war, medyo may problema na yung ating economy. Diba? 4% na lang nga yung growth target. Tapos dumating pa ito. So, in the middle of this weakening ng ating economy, anong dapat ginagawa ng gobyerno?
Well, I guess really they tried to, they already created a plan how to stimulate the economy, no? I mentioned earlier, they did the big, bold reforms, but again, it takes time. Then, it was overtaken by events, which is this Middle East crisis, which means that's added expenses in trying to repatriate our fellow Filipinos overseas, no? That adds to the pressure and to the cost, no? At the same time, the other thing is, although from the private sector, companies are trying to expand, to continue. But again, the problem really is all about confidence. So kung masakit talaga ang ipin natin dahil dito sa accountability, we are still hopeful that automatically gaganda yung ipin natin by doing nothing na may makulong, no? But that takes time. So the question is, are we going to wait for that so that confidence will come back? Or on the government side, they're trying to do their best to spend, but it takes time. Trying to jail these people takes so much time. Diba? So, ngayon, ang challenge talaga natin, what are we going to do? Diba? So the private sector is doing their part, but again, private investors are challenged, including consumers, to start spending kasi wala silang nakikita eh.
Jonas,
Diba?
so much time, we don't even know if we're really going to see any big fish behind bars, to be honest. But let me ask you something about the peso, because that is the big story for today. 60 to the dollar is not entirely unexpected. Even before this war in Iran, some economists were already forecasting it would hit 60 to the dollar first quarter of this year. Na-accelerate lang dahil dun sa gera sa Middle East. But a few weeks ago, Malacanang said President Marcos doesn't want the peso reaching this level, doesn't want it hitting this level. And then on the other hand, last night the BSP came out with a statement saying we essentially are on wait-and-see mode. They're only going to intervene in times of excessive volatility, and they're not going to defend a specific level against the USD. But of course, we all know that there's ways for the president to try to convince the BSP to intervene if need be. Kasi nga, psychological level itong 60, it weighs heavily, it has a heavy impact on the economy. What do you think? Should there be an intervention at this point or not?
Well, basically, let's put it this way. The BSP doesn't care whether it's 60 or 61. I think what the BSP wants is basically looking at it's a two-way street. I think the movement today, it opened at 59.90, went up to 60.40, and now it closed at 60.10. Shows that it's a two-way street, meaning there's no need for an intervention. What the BSP fears is that if it's just going to go from 59.90 and stays at 60.40 and it doesn't come down. So I think as long as it's a two-way street, the BSP does not need to intervene. I think the market in general continues to understand the reason why it's above 60, because oil continues to stay above 100. Now, is there a need to further defend the currency? I don't think so, because the BSP's main function is really price stability. It's just that sometimes people look at the exchange rate as an anchor, no?
Yun
But
nga eh.
the key anchor that we all look at is really inflation to stay within 2 to 4%.
Yeah.
How
And
about-
so no need for intervention at this point, but just very quickly, 20 seconds, Jonas, do you see it weakening further up to 61, 62 this year? Hindi ko alam if nakapag-recalculate ka na given today's events.
Well, basically, I think the risk on the upside is high, and because one of the key factors to look at is oil. So if there's a 3 to 9 month war, that will most likely, which was my scenario 2, extended war, then the risk towards 61 is there.
3 to 9 month war.
Yeah.
Oo. And okay, last question,
Last
very quickly,
question,
Jonas.
Jonas, another important variable are remittances. Our biggest dollar earner are remittances. Yung isang tatamaan dito, kung ma-prolong ito, ay seafarers. At seafarers, ang single biggest contributor sa remittances. So, may mga nakausap na akong Siemens Group, nag-worry na sila about this. No? So, kung sakaling tumagal ito ng 1 month at tatamaan yung major contributor, anong tingin mo? Will this affect our itong remittance issue?
Okay. During times of uncertainty, whether it was Arab Spring or in the past, no? Typically, whether Middle East or European, pag may crisis, they tend to send more than usual, no? Especially katulad ngayon, no? So, but it shows the resiliency of our remittances. But again, during also this time, they only send what is necessary. So kung may kailangan lang magdagdag ng konti to adjust because tumaas yung presyo, they will send. No? So there's that resiliency. I'm not worried about are we going to slow down below 3% growth. I think it's still resilient. No, we're talking about close to 39 billion worth of our remittances. So if we talk about the Middle East, that's only 5% of our total. No, so we can still hack it. So from a remittance or source of dollars perspective, we're still good.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
We'll leave that there. Thank you so much for talking to us and explaining all of that. I know you're at an event, so we'll let you go back to that. That was economist Jonathan Ravela. Salamat,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you are watching Storycon on One News. We just need to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Please stay with us.
We've got developing news and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome back to Storycon, the Story Conference. I'm Ed Lingao.
And I'm Regina Lay. Still with us, Amy Pamitun of the Philippine Star and Ronald Llamas, our resident political pundit.
And also join us this afternoon, this Thursday afternoon, from the Action for Economic Reforms Group, Economics Research and Advocacy Associate Gage Andal. Gage, welcome to Storycon and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon po. Thank you po. Thank you.
Hi.
We got your name right naman, no? It's Gage.
Yes, opo. Gage po.
Just making sure.
Hindi siya gage
Hindi po. Correct
Sinabi mo
pronunciation
pa
po.
talaga.
Hindi, parang malinaw, di ba?
Pasensya na, Gage. You have an excuse,
All
Ronald.
this talk about the excise taxes, suspending it, or reducing it, napasa na ng Kongreso, initay lang pirma ng Palasyo, pero ngayon mukhang nag-aalinlangan. What is the AER's take on this? Does it make sense to suspend excise taxes?
Actually, yes. Actually, ano po, no? We've actually commented on this na po quite recently na it is very unfortunate that this came to pass. Basically, pasado na po siya. Yung fuel excise taxes po kasi, yung suspension po nito, sa madaling sabi, we agree with our economists nationwide basically na medyo regressive po talaga siya. Okay? Regressive po siya. Ang pinaka magbe-benefit po kasi dito, hindi naman po yung dapat na mag-benefit, which is yung tinatawag na bottom 50% of the of households, no? Yung pinaka mag-benefit po dito ay yung nasa yung may kaya po talaga. So it really begs the question po. The immediate question there is, sino ho ba talaga ang gusto nating tulungan? Yung ordinaryong mamamayan po ba talaga? O ano po? So, meron naman pong mga policy tools na mas effective. Ito po kasi yung fuel excise tax suspension, it is a blunt instrument po that would provide a temporary relief for a long-term problem with long-term consequences. So, katulad po nung 2022, nagkaroon din po tayo ng fuel crisis. Nagkaroon naman po tayo ng response doon na targeted. No? Targeted po yung mga vulnerable sectors, the poor, the transportation sector. So, we were hoping that we would see the same kind of response considering na we were able to ride out the crisis back then. It's relatively successfully naman po compared to today. So we expect that in the long run, this will bite us back.
When you said regressive, you're referring, I suppose, to the idea of suspending it.
Yes, opo. Kasi when
Not the
we
tax itself.
suspend the excise tax on fuel po, based on our estimates, ang pinaka mag-benefit po talaga dito, hindi naman po yung bottom 50%. Yung
Top 10%.
yung top 10 and upper 50% po. But yes, most especially yung top 10. We have initial estimates showing na when this comes to pass, the estimated benefit from May to December 2026 would probably be just around 1,400 per household for the entire year. Or that's around 179 pesos per month in benefits to the bottom 50%.
How
So
about,
there
how
are
about suspension of
better
the IBAT?
instruments po sana. Yes.
How about suspension of the 12% IBAT on electricity and fuel products? Is that also regressive? Dahil ang tatamaan yan, lahat tayo gumagamit ng kuryente, di ba? So,
Opo.
is that also regressive from your vantage point?
Yes, ito po in particular, kasi we were focusing po on the fuel excise tax suspension. So we still need to look into how it will impact the economy po and how regressive it will be if it is regressive. And hindi naman po namin dinedeny na may relief yung mga tax suspensions if temporary, which is the problem po.
Well,
Kasi po
temporary
yung
naman talaga yung crisis
yung
natin
benefit-
ngayon
yes.
because of the Iran war, di ba? We can discuss medium-term and long-term solutions probably later. Pero very immediate yung ngayon yung pagtaas
Excise
ng fuel, yung pagtaas ng lahat ng bilihin, at yung elephant in the room, yung talagang 20 to 30 day reserves na baka maubos in a month. So, talagang emergency ito. At iba ito doon sa Ukraine oil crisis. No? Medyo naiiba siya.
Opo. Yes, tama naman po. We agree with you on that po. And yun nga, medyo talagang urgent po ang issue. But that is exactly why mas importante po na yung support ay targeted po sa mga talagang nangangailangan po. And yun po yung talagang bottom 50%. And we agree, we support po yung pag-subsidize actually nung PUVs. So I have heard that nagsimula na po yung rollout noon last week and there's gonna be another rollout next week. So those are really good measures to kind of combat the current crisis. But the question there din po is that kasi hindi rin po natin talaga alam kung gaano katagal po ito. Now, we have measures that would help in the short run, but we also have to think about how this would be impacting us in the long run din. But yes, yun po yun. So, dito rin po kasi pumapasok yung stance po namin sa AER na may mga better policy responses po na pwede tayong tingnan. Especially yung 136 billion to even 330 billion shortfall. That is no small number. That is that would definitely impact our public coffers. So, may kasama pong question yung paano natin tutulungan yung ordinaryong mamamayan na paano naman natin popondohan yung shortfall po na yun? Saan po natin kukunin yung pondo na yun without resorting to further borrowing? Kasi po, meron na po tayong constrained fiscal space na persistent over the past few years. So, those are very real concerns.
Gage, ano yung proposal mo na dapat gawin immediately? No? Dahil nga very immediate yung emergency, yung crisis. Diba? You are left with a lot of imperfect options. Wala namang perfect dyan. So, ano yung least imperfect dito sa mga options na ito? Tama ba yung ayuda? No? Puro ayuda na lang ba yung gagawin natin? Mamimigay tayo ng tigli 5,000. No? Tapos itong mga excise, IBAT proposals, no? etc. So, what is the proposal of AER? In the immediate, not the medium term. Dahil kung tumagal itong gera ng 1 month, disastrous sa ating economy yan. No? So, what we are confronting is very short term.
Yes, opo. So, kami po, yun talaga, agree po kami doon sa yung ayuda, malaking bagay po na iyon. It's a really good first step, no? It's hard to kind of weigh everything po without really considering it more deeply kasi lahat po yan may trade-offs. Sabi nyo nga po, hindi naman po perfecto yung mga polisiya, no? But those are the immediate first steps na talagang meron po kaming suporta. Yung ayuda po and yung support po, subsidies for our public transportation sector. And yeah, yes
ang
po.
pinakamalaki ng hihingi niyang pagsuspindi ng excise tax actually is the transport sector Kasi halimbawa, bibigyan mo silang 5,000 a week. Yung gasolina nila is magkano? 30 liters. ang bawat karga, no? 30 liters, bawat litro, 6 pesos doon diesel eh. 6 pesos yung excise tax. O di 180 na yon araw-araw. Yun ang sinasabi nila eh, na ang matutulungan pa rin, yung mahihirap na yan. Yung mga motor, yung mga nagdi-deliver, motorsiklo, yung tricycle driver, yan ang hinihingi nila, nababagalan sila sa rollout. Hindi nila alam kung gaano kabilis yung 5,000 na, a week ba yan, a month, hindi nila alam. So, yun ang kasi sinasabi nyo, mayayaman nyo. Kami, makikinabang din kami dyan eh. Hindi naman ako mayaman. Pag kinatsyang yung excise tax.
But
no? Kaya, in fact, sinasabi nila, nakukulangan sila doon sa 5,000. At nababagalan daw sila, ang gulo-gulo daw, bakit daw dito lang sa Maynila? Sa probinsya daw, wala pa. Hindi nila alam kung masusustain ng gobyerno. And you're talking about tax utilization, ha? Isa sa pinakamalaking problema natin ngayon, yung paggamit ng buwis, eh.
Totoo po yan, Ma'am Ami. Malaking issue po talaga yan. And in my opinion, it requires a whole of government approach to really tackle this problem po. And yun din po eh. So maganda po yung na-mention nyo na sapat na po ba talaga yung 5,000 na subsidy po. There's another 5,000 to 10,000 coming next week sa rollouts na admittedly mabagal nga po. Pero yun po, doon po natin nakikita na hindi po ba pwedeng hanggang doon lang po ba yung kaya nating subsidy na i-provide. Now, I'm not here po to say, to recommend how much the subsidy should be. We would prefer to look closely into that muna po. But yung pag-subsidize po ng mga vulnerable sectors and yung transportation sectors, yun po talaga ang dapat tayong pagtuunan ng pansin. And yung sa amount po, yun po kasi it's a one-time release po if hindi ako nagkakamali. So and given na hindi po natin masabi kung gaano katagal po yung yung conflict, no, we cannot afford not to think about the mid and long term din po. So for us in AER, yun po, we support the subsidy, we support the ayuda, opo. But also from a structural standpoint, we also have to look into other measures that would help really be prudent about the consumption of fuel. So ganito po, yung sa fuel po natin, may mga price signals po kasi yan na hindi naman po dapat matamper with. They really are indicative of the scarcity of fuel. So if we are not careful and medyo ma-manipulate po natin yung price signals, it could lead to imprudent consumption of an already scarce commodity. So, isa po sa mga sinusuportahan din po namin is, at the very least, temporarily, short term, yung transition din po to work from home arrangements in the private sector and in the government sector para po makatulong kahit papaano. It's not a permanent solution, it's not a perfect solution, pero para makatulong po kahit papaano sa prudent na pagkonsumo ng fuel.
Gage, just to simplify things, if I'm getting you right, what you're saying basically is that instead of government subsidizing everybody, including yung mayaman, which is basically what will happen if we suspend the excise taxes across the board. Basically, ganun mangyari. Government will just absorb the losses in subsidy and for everybody. Instead of doing subsidy for everybody, subsidy for targeted individuals, tataasan dapat. O lalakyan
yes
dapat.
Po.
Yeah.
Yun po mismo yung punto po namin sana. Dapat po targeted po talaga yung tulong.
Yes.
Kasi imbes meron, halimbawa po, hopefully I could simplify things this way. Yung tulong po na ibibigay natin sa lahat, meron pong makakatanggap dyan na hindi naman po talaga kailangan yung tulong. Siyempre po, ito po yung mga mayayaman. Yung tulong po na iyon, na sa kanila mapupunta, na hindi naman po nila kailangan, maaari maibigay naman po sa ordinaryong mamamayan.
Yeah,
Yun
yeah,
po
yeah.
yung point po sana nun.
Yeah.
Kaya kailangan targeted.
We got it. Thank you so much, Gage. And you're right, yung 5,000 peso subsidy for now has not been announced as a weekly thing. It seems to be a one-off for now, although the government has said that it is looking into other methods of subsidies. So, for example, the DA is looking to subsidize farmers and fisher folk, especially since the price of fertilizers has gone up because of the war nga. But we shall leave that there. Thanks so much for talking to us here on Storycon. That was Gage Andal from the Action for Economic Reforms.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gage.
Before we cut to break, I just have to squeeze in a comment from Jonas Travelas, whom we just spoke to. Meron siyang separate proposal. He says, Uni Oil has our Saudi Aramco as a shareholder, and they should thus have access to that oil on the assumption that their agreement is similar to that of Petron when Saudi Aramco was still a shareholder of Petron. There was a provision in the Petron-Saudi Aramco shareholder agreement that Petron's requirement based on their forecast would be prioritized in times of supply crunch. So ang point ni Jonas is there are other ways for the government to step in and speak with other countries through the local oil players when we come to a point where our own supply is at risk. But that is a big if at this point. If there is such a provision
Kung
in the
makakadaan yung mga barko nila ron.
but if there is such a provision in the Uni Oil Saudi Aramco shareholder agreement, so maybe the government, he's saying maybe the government can reach out to Saudi through Uni Oil, kasi Saudi Aramco holds a 25% stake in Uni Oil. That's a interesting proposal as well. So, but at this point, they have to exhaust all options. Na
Hindi ba
rin.
alam ng gobyerno yun?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We should ask them.
Yeah.
And
We're on until 5:30. Storycon will be right back after a short break. Please stay tuned.
all right, welcome back to Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao, and still with us, Rol Llamas and Ami Pamintuan. And also joining us this afternoon, the President of Strat-Based ADR Institute, Professor Dindo Manhid. Sir, magandang hapon and welcome back to Storycon.
Magandang hapon, Ed, Reg, Ami, and Ronald.
And Ronald, yes, sir.
Magandang hapon.
Yes, sir. Sir, we're looking at the latest surveys released through Strat-Base, conducted by Pulsation in February 27 to March 2, where you see an increase in respondents who want the government to address food prices, corruption, and create more jobs. I mean, the price surge. Sir, tumaas siya ng 3 percentage points compared to the survey conducted last December 2025. I suppose yung tanong ng mga tao, tumaas nga siya pero parang parang hindi ganoon kataas na inaasa ng ibang tao.
Ay, hindi naman siguro na hindi lang inaasahan nila. Of course, this survey has not factored in this change of oil prices
Middle
that might trigger some costs. So, that hopefully that might be captured by other surveys. But this one, this happened. The survey field report came after by the second week of March. So this has not yet captured it.
Okay. That's right. Kasi I was looking at the dates. It's February 27 to March 2. Okay, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Did
Go ahead.
anything about the survey surprise you, Dindo? I mean, especially for me personally, for example, yung 26% of respondents citing the need to eliminate corruption. I would have thought it should be higher, no?
It just reflects, Reg, that in the Philippines, no matter how the noise was about the flood control, the day-to-day concern of affordability, the so-called cost of living challenges ng ating mga mamamayan, because in this case, specifically what we said, in your community concern. That means this is really at the level of their day-to-day life. And for them, corruption might be there, but it's really cost of living.
Is it
Mahirap ang buhay.
So tingin mo, Dindo, dahil dito sa Iran war at yung impact nito sa ating economy, magmumultiply yung concern ng mga tao sa sikmura rather than yung mga political upheavals na nangyayari sa atin, katulad halimbawa ng impeachment, katulad ng massive corruption, etc. So, tingin mo matatabunan itong mga issues na ito dahil
Hindi
dito
siya
sa
matatabunan.
unprecedented impact sa ating economy.
Hindi siya matatabunan if the government addresses or mitigates some of this impact with the different government programs or initiatives. Lalo kung hirap na ang tao, tapos maririnig nila nagnanakaw, may nagnakaw. So I think it will still be there.
Pero yung tatanungin ko din doon, nalilink ba ng mga tao yung corruption dun sa paghihirap nila economically? Can you infer in any way sa mga surveys nyo kung nako-connect ng mga tao yung impact ng corruption sa pang-araw-araw na buhay, trabaho?
Yung galit nila sa corruption, I think, Ami, you can infer because corruption used to be a fifth concern.
Pretty low, no?
Una, presyo ng bill. So, number 5 yan. Pero since the flood control, tapos mataas pa ang bilihin, at hindi siya nagre-reflect sa inflation numbers ng gobyerno. No, sa tao, hindi naman talaga nami-mitigate, hirap pa rin ang buhay. I feel they can connect it. Lalo na kung talagang may specific individuals, kasi tanong ni Ronald earlier, impeachment, that could refer to the corruption of one specific person. Mako-connect yan. Kung klaro na nagnakaw.
Pero normally yung mga ganyan din do, hindi ba? Ikino-connect yan sa presidente. Sa tingin mo, itong ganitong klaseng mga numbers, they will affect kasi you regularly commission surveys, no? Similar topics, similar questioning. Sa tingin nyo, maapektuhan pa rin yung performance and trust ratings ni President Marcos, which went down, although medyo nag-stabilize in the first quarter. Sa tingin mo, may impact siya?
May impact siya kung hindi nga ma-harness ng gobyerno ang iba't ibang programa at resources nila to mitigate the impact of this high cost. But if they see government doing something and government explains that this is beyond really our borders, but they're doing their best, it's a matter of communicating. But on the corruption side, of course, we tend to blame the corrupt people. And right now, the issue is not on the president on the corruption, especially if we cross the impeachment process na papunta to kay Vice President. So matitingnan natin by the time, but cannot answer at this moment.
And now, after today, this administration will forever be remembered as the administration when the peso breached 60 to the US dollar. Whether or not they had any hand in that, wala na. That's going to be part of history now. Is it safe to say that economic issues will be this administration's Waterloo, Dindo? Or, what implications does this have?
It has been their Waterloo, Reg. It's just that the corruption went up on other economic issues.
Yeah.
But the affordability that the government kept on negating by saying inflation is being managed well. Inflation from an economic point of view might be managed well, but sa taong bayan, tuloy pa rin ang pagtaas ng presyo ng bilihin. At mahirap at mabigat ang kabuhayan nila.
So, ano yung implications going into the last 2 years of this presidency?
Again, there are enough programs inside the national budget that can address this. Properly implemented, executed, like simple intervention on tariffs. It's time for us to revisit tariffs on rice, tariffs on corn, to bring down the cost of food and rice. Because a lower corn prices brings down the cost of chicken and pork in a country. So these are things that you can intervene. No? Or there are different social programs that we called last year, ayudas, di ba? If this goes directly to the public, the citizen, the voter, then they will see that government is helping them mitigate their hardship in life.
Pero Dindo, di ba, may dalawang possible, may double whammy na posibleng makonfront yung gobyerno dahil kung tumagal halimbawa itong gera ng 1 month, definitely, kahit anong gawin ng gobyerno, that will be disastrous for the economy. And it will take its toll on inflation, etc. Wala namang wages na tataas eh. wala namang papayag na tumaas ang wages except the workers themselves. Ikalawa, kung walang makukulong, no, yung na big fish, no, mananatiling mga galunggong yung makukulong, ay double whammy ito for the government. So, hindi ba ganun yung threat sa kanila?
Yan ang continuing threat. Kaya nga sabi ko nga is tumaas na from a fifth concern o lower concern ang corruption at number 2 na kasi nga para may kakulangan sila nakikita. Nais ng tao may managot, galit sila mula nung pinag-usapan to after the SONA at naghihintay pa rin. May pagkakataon ng Pangulo. Ako nga sana, bago mag-SONA, makita tayo ng big fish na uhulihin o kakasuhan or sunod-sunod na kaso or kahit man lang amla. Di ba? Yung ma-hold ang mga gamit nila, mga bank account nila, then hindi na nasa korte na yun. So should not be the fault of the government. But there should be actions like that.
Sir, you already mentioned a while ago the issue of tariffs, but let me ask you about a different kind of levy. In particular, the big debate over excise taxes on oil. Your perspective on that, sir? Some
That
would argue, yes, sir.
That should be removed at this moment, no? I've always thought and I even related to a non-crisis period when people say we have higher cost of electricity, kasi nga madami na nga buwis, dadagdagan mo pa ng VAT sa dulo. Ngayon, mahirap na ang buhay, binabat mo pa. Kasi hindi mo naman tinatanggal yung ibang tax, it's just the VAT. Pero ang sagot minsan na ekonomista natin dyan, Ed, is kailangan natin sa mga gastusin ng gobyerno yan. Ang stand ko naman dyan, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin yan sa tao na galit sa pagnanakaw. So for me, government should use this as an opportunity to be more responsive to the public. Stop taxing our people on things that they could have saved more if they have improved governance in our country.
Yes, sir. I understand, sir. But there are also those who argue that excise taxes on fuel they benefit everybody, most especially those who are better off, much better off.
That's
and
not
they're,
true.
They're
That's
arguing for more
that's
targeted.
an argument of. But what is your option? The same people take their buses, takes their jeepney rides.
Yeah.
Our food that we buy in stores consume gasoline. That's an argument of economists. I don't know where it comes from.
Yes, sir. Well, sir, actually, their argument is more targeted subsidies for sectors, like, for example, transportation sector. Increase the subsidies for them instead of removing the taxes that cover everybody.
At the end of the day, when you say affordability, everybody suffers from that. Subsidies will just allow our jeepney operators or drivers not to ask for fare increase. Right? But will that ensure, will you subsidize the truck driver or the truck logistics driver or the company that brings food to the sari-sari store? You cannot subsidize them. That's their private sector. No? So, yun ang mahirap when you subsidize. And we have been doing that, but has it really alleviated the lives of our people? Considering sinisigaw nila ay mahirap ang buhay, mahal po. And this is, we're basically saying the law that was passed by both houses, sana, they find a compromise, is to limit it to when we reach a certain level of gasoline prices lang naman.
$80.
Yes, diba? So, once it goes down, dapat bumalik. Ang nakakalungkot lang ay nag-uumpisa pa lang ang gera, nagmahal na ang gasolina. Wala pa tayong stock dito.
Well, that's the other issue.
Dapat hindi na dapat tinatanong natin, di ba?
Oh, we've been asking that, Pindo, and the answer that
Hindi na ang katanungan. Di ba? Niloloko tayo ng mga...
Yung mga economists lang nag-explain sa amin, di namin ma-explain din do.
I'll just be a little naughty sa inyo. Do you know why we had Petron through the years? It's meant to stabilize against foreign oil companies. But why did we privatize Petron in 2008? Full privatization. Before, our privatization was with Saudi Aramco, but just 40%.
Yeah.
And 40% means may source tayo ng oil through Saudi Arabia. Now, we've fully privatized it. in 2008, if I remember it right, and still, anong option natin? So,
Pero
yun ang mga
lagi nilang
katanungan ko
i-invoke
na.
din yung oil deregulation, yung free market, no? Wala bang magagawa ang
Hindi.
gobyerno talaga?
Hindi, yung oil deregulation kasi it's hard to subsidize it. No? Pero tanong ko lang, if you had a company that can provide us buffers. But now nga, everybody gets to follow what they want, the oil companies. Hirap na hirap ang oil companies. Kamusta kaya mga executive nila?
Kawawa naman. Oh,
Dati may
But-
panangga tayo with
kawawa
Petron.
naman, diba? Diba? Yun ang sa akin lang, yun ang, ang tawag namin dito strategic industries.
Oh.
Dati. Kasi yung oil deregulation, kinokontrol mo pati private sector. Diba?
Pero hindi rin ideal yung re-regulation, Dindo, because then you
Yeah.
have the government
Yeah.
subsidizing the difference. Pero the answer
That's why. That's why I said nga, we should have thought of, there was nothing wrong when 40% of Petron was owned by Saudi Aramco, 40% by government. Nandun pa rin tayo. You can intervene. 20% by the public. Diba? But when it was fully deregulated, they have the same voice as other players.
Yeah. Yeah. The answer that keeps coming back to us about why mabilis tumaas yung presyo ng gas here when global markets, when global prices go up is the replacement cost.
Replenishment
because
costs.
the replenishment cost, because the oil companies start factoring in the higher prices that they have to pay the following week in order to replenish
Later.
their supply. What do you think of that? Is there basis for that?
I'll just base it as a simple public. So that's simply trading, hedging.
Oh.
Yeah, hedging.
So ibig sabihin, you are neutralizing your risk to the benefit of the Philippine public. Yun lang naman yan. Tama sila, that's their interest. Pero what about the Filipino people? Are you saying that, kala ko ba may 60 days buffer tayo? So ano nire-replenish na next week?
Pero sir, with that question nga in mind, what should we do and what can we do about that huge question na bakit yung biniling gasolina na mura pa noon, binibenta ng mahal? What's our recourse?
Ang recourse kasi dyan ay, at the end of the day, to diversify sources. Also, imagine a country like the Philippines who knows how unstable the Middle East is. We keep on buying it in the Middle East. When there are natural gas coming from the U.S., when an oversupply of, when the Middle East is not really the biggest player on oil only. Diba?
Yeah.
So, minsan, it's our lack of foresight. Maybe we got used to it. Maybe some are saying it's cheaper to buy there, less risky at the price cost. But somebody is earning from this on the trade side also. Kasi, gera pa lang. At tanong ko, bababa ka agad dyan pag natigil lang pag nagka-ceasefire? Hindi rin naman, di ba? It
Hindi.
takes time.
Pero parang,
So,
Dindo,
because-
walang natatakot
parang
eh. Walang natatakot sa gobyerno eh. Tingin nila, they
Yeah,
can
it-
get away with anything eh. Especially itong big players.
It reflects siguro yung tatawag natin, not weakness of government, but weakness of our state also.
O yan, tatanong ko kay
Dapat-
Reg eh. Kung replacement cost yung pinoproblema natin, bakit kapag biglang bumagsak sa world market, hindi naman bumabagsak kagad-kagad dito sa atin?
Just for the record, wala akong oil, wala akong gas station. Baka may maniwala.
Paliwanag mo.
Spokesperson
Diba? Bakit ganun?
That
Pagbagsak doon, bakit hindi bumabagsak
Ami,
dito?
that is the folly of a free market. That traders,
Yeah.
sabi nga ni Dindo, the traders will take advantage because it's a free market, it's deregulated.
Kaya nga, kaya
So,
kalokohan yung anong yun, yung cost na yung sinasabi nila.
oh, pero Dindo, when you say diversifying sources, do you have any other country in mind? Because you're right, 98%.
We cannot do that now. We cannot do that now, but because we lack strategic foresight nga.
Oh.
But on a long term, there are natural gas being drilled in the Pacific
Yeah.
Ocean by Western nations.
Well,
We should be talking to them.
there was-
And they visited the Philippines. diba? Or also fast track on a long term oil and gas development in our country.
I was just gonna say,
But
diba,
diversify,
there's a massive find of natural gas in Malampaya.
that's imagine if you have multiple malampayas or even sourcing actual LNGs. That means that can be shipped not from Qatar only. Because what this is telling us, we have relied on an area that remains to be unstable through the years.
Alam mo, isang potential source na hindi natatap masyado, Central Mindanao. Di ba?
But again, you have to drill and get people to...
smuggled yung oil doon, galing Malaysia.
Hindi, Central Mindanao. If I remember right, Petron was exploring there before eh. Sa Marsh, Ligwasan Marsh.
It's a marsh. Lagusan Marsh or... But we also have in South Sulusi.
Bawal magano
South
doon,
Sulusi.
kayo, protected na yung protected wetland.
Protected area.
Ang Ligwasan?
Yeah.
You cannot, yes, you cannot. That's a Ramsar
Bawal doon.
protected wetland.
Okay.
Yun ang problem din.
Environmental ang issue ron.
You know what? Coming back to your survey, Dindo, inflation and rising costs of goods was already the topmost concern of most Filipino voters noong 2022 coming into this administration pa lang. And again in 2025 during the midterms, and until now it still remains a topmost concern. So I guess, I asked you earlier if it's going to be the Waterloo of this administration, pero politically, ano yung implications here for succession?
Politically, politically, at the end of the day, it's still 2 years, no? Because if it is March of 2028, we're at the start of the national campaign. But for government, there's time. As I've said, there are enough programs and possible interventions by government. Because a feeling of voter frustration is because they don't feel government intervention. So maybe we have like lowering VAT on gasoline. That will be felt by the public. That will not only be felt by car owners according to economists, diba? Lowering the prices of
Di naman ako rich.
Nga, diba? Oo, hindi man tayo rich dito, mga nag-uusap.
Oh.
Diba?
Except Ronald.
Hindi mo maintindihan where that coming from.
Yeah, ako rin eh. Hindi naman ako rich.
Diba? So,
Mga kapatid ko, di naman rich.
Kaya ngayon ang problem natin with that. And it's an always argument of the economists. So I don't know what study have they shown? Nothing, right? We just accept what they say. So sa akin lang, those simple interventions can bring down the cost of living of our people. As I've said, lowering tariffs of corn, lowering tariffs of rice. Diba? Then people will say, uy, mas mura.
But then,
dapat naman, ang katapat nung bababa ang presyo ng baboy, bababa ang presyo ng chicken.
But then the other side to it, and in economics, everything has a trade-off. The other side of it is you're gonna anger the agricultural industry, right? Because now they have to compete with
Yung local, yung domestic. Oo.
Reg, your question was, how will it affect 2028 election? Who has more votes?
Sabagay,
Agriculture or consumers?
So now it's
If you will
about
ask me, I will give up. That's why you don't win by satisfying everyone. Your question was premised on
fair enough.
political. If I'm political, I'll concentrate on the greater majority, which is the Filipino consumers.
Going back to sa present, Dindo, no? Kung halimbawa, hypothetically, ikaw ang nasa gobyerno at ikaw ang in charge dito sa mga nangyayaring ito. Hypothetical lang naman, no? At ang framework mo ay hoping for the best but preparing for the worst. No? How can you prepare for the worst? Dahil you don't prepare pag nandyan na yung shortage. Dapat ngayon pa lang naghahanda ka na. So ano yung dapat ginagawa ng gobyerno ngayon? With a very tight fiscal space, di ba? With very limited options in terms of getting oil from other countries dahil nagta-tighten din sila. Ano yung, with these imperfect options, ano yung less imperfect na pwede mong gawin as government?
As government, I think when you say fiscal option, budget is still there. So at the end of the day, you have to satisfy the social challenges of our people. Concentrate on that. Then, again, bite the bullet, bring down the cost to the public of who will feel bad when you remove VAT in gasoline, not the oil companies. It's still revenue. So tatamaan. Kasi all this does not have long-term solution eh. It boils down to our lack of strategic reserves. Right? It boils down to our lack of diversification. No? So it boils down to lack of strategic thinking on government's part. And also, quick responsiveness. Isipin mo, dinedefend pa natin yung VAT, dinedefend pa natin ang ibang sector instead of ano bang gusto ng taong bayan.
Pero di ba,
yun ang-
problema talaga natin din ang strategic thinking with our present political system? Na one term,
Hindi-
lang,
hindi-
one term lang ang gobyerno eh. Tapos 1
It's
year,
not because of
learning.
our
Kailangan mo dyan,
political
tsatsa eh.
system.
Yan ang problema dyan eh.
Last
Tsatsa
year mo,
kailangan dyan.
slim ka na. So, wala
it-
talaga
it-
ng
deal with
strategic
that.
thinking eh.
No, it's not a form of government. It's a form of thinking. That's the point of my book that I launched last January. You lack strategic thinking in this government. We have identified problems since 2022 with this government. So you have to address it. But you cannot just wait for the next crisis. No? So, yun ang kailangan natin harapin. But at the bottom of it, dapat pinagsisilbihan natin ano yung pangangailangan ng tao. Our survey, if babalik tayo sa survey namin, sinasabi, mahal ang bilihin. Hindi pa factoring itong problemang ito. Tapos, nagnanakaw pa kayo. It's as simple as that. Yan ang
yan
resulta.
na.
So, yun ang kailangan gawin natin. How can we mitigate yung kamahalan ng buhay? So, review ng taxes natin. Hindi mo naman tatanggalan ng buong tax ang oil industry natin, but the VAT lang. That is passed on to consumers. Diba? Ganon din sa power, kung gusto natin, pati power generation, kung magmamahal. Diba? Pero on the long term, kailangan binibilisan natin yung mga project natin ng oil and gas. Binibilisan natin ang diversification of our oil sourcing. And also, have a conversation with these oil industry players. Talaga bang hirap kayo? Dalawang linggo pa lang to, 3 linggo?
Impatient
Tingnan natin
na si
ang mga
Juan eh.
kumpanya
Dindo.
nila.
Impatient na si Ami tsaka si Reg. Parang gusto na nila revolusyon eh.
Tax ng tax, saan ba napupunta yung tax? Kaya ang problema dyan eh. We haven't even resolved our problem with tax utilization, tapos
Yeah, that's true.
pinagtatagol mo yung tax.
Ami,
I mean, it's a very
mag-iinis lang ako
difficult
sa inyo.
defense.
Mag-iinis lang ako sa inyo. A sister company of you, Business World, every year comes out with the top business companies of the Philippines, top 1,000. Check who are on top.
The oil companies.
The oil companies.
Petron.
Oo, kaya nga.
And
Shell.
Kaya nga.
Yun
Shell.
ang point ko. O, di ba? O, lugi pala sila. Di ba? Palagi siya lugi. Palagi mahirap ang buhay. Pala nila mabili. This is talking points.
Oh. Hindi, I mean, maybe not lugi naman, pero of course, their primary driver is profit, right? And if they see a chance to take
Private
profit,
sector
they'll
yan eh.
profit. If we want to change that, then that's a different form of governance at all, diba? Hindi na siya free market.
We're not asking them to give up profit, but this is a crisis. That means the nation takes over. The national interest takes over. Then there should be a conversation on that. You cannot just accept all the explanation as face value.
Because at most, the only
Just
thing...
like economists telling you only the rich will benefit,
Oo nga.
diba? We cannot just simply accept those arguments every time this
Ako
happens.
talaga hindi ko
Same
hindi ko rin
lines.
matake yun.
Free market din kasi yung Nepal, tsaka Indonesia, tsaka Bangladesh. Ayun, nagkaroon ng riots. Too much free market.
The most
Free market
Kaya
could
nga.
also mean free minds, diba?
Free
Riot
for
nga
all.
yun.
That's over the use of public funds also. Corruption din yan.
the
That's
most
over the
Yes.
use of public funds.
the most that the oil companies have committed to is staggering the price increases.
Ayaw nilang
And
i-share
we
yung
are so
burden.
staggered already.
Huh?
We are staggered by the increase.
Okay. Different
Oo,
staggered.
Ayaw nila i-share yung burden.
Well, that's why they're
Dahil free
staggered.
market eh.
Oo.
Staggered na ako.
Okay.
Na-stagger ako every week.
Okay. We'll leave that there. We've run out of time.
Sa'yo,
But thanks for
revolution
joining
gusto niya.
Storycon and explaining all of that. Strat-based ADR Institute founder and president, Professor Dindo Manhit. Salamat, sir.
Salamat, Dindo.
Thank you, sir.
Maraming
Thanks,
salamat.
Dindo.
Maraming salamat.
Na-agitate yung dalawa rito eh.
All right.
Oo nga,
That-
nai-stagger ka, I'm staggered.
That is all the time we have for today. Excuse me, I'm not calling for a revolution.
So,
I
we're calling for more
A reset.
More free market.
a reset.
More
A
free.
reset.
wipe the slate clean. Thank you for joining Storycon
That's a
today.
revolution.
Iba ibig sabihin ng wipe the slate clean, ha?
Well,
That's a revolution.
She just said she's calling
Oo
for
nga,
wiping
hindi
the
daw
slate clean.
revolution.
read into it what you will.
Is that sedition? or
Ikaw
what?
na bahala. Ikaw na
Hindi, babalik sa Singapore yan.
Ang 21 Editor-in-Chief of the Philippine
Okay,
Star, Ronald
okay talaga.
Llamas, a resident political heckler. Join us again tomorrow 4 p.m. for Storycon. I'm Regina Lay.
I'm Ed Lingao, kapatid. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
This is the Story Conference Group or the Storycon Group.